Hey, hey, hey. It is Soul Care Conversations. Conversations centered on what feeds the soul. And yes, originally we were Soul Care Sundays. And again, nothing has changed about the podcast. We just revamped the name. And I may not just be talking on Sundays. I may be talking on a Monday, a Wednesday, a Tuesday. Every day is a good day to have conversations for the soul. And I couldn't start my new season without having some beautiful and amazing co-hosts. Like my co-host I have today, her name is Herrera, and I'm so excited to have her, aka her new podcast, Episodes of Empowerment, which is not only just a podcast, but it's also a nonprofit organization centered on helping people get resources and get free resources and access to free resources. But I'll let her talk a little bit more about herself and her organization, and then we're going to dive into the topic at hand. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Z.
Hi guys, my name is Zjaleah Herrera and I am the owner of Episodes of Empowerment, a nonprofit organization where we provide provisions to the community as well as resources. Currently right now I have been hosting a lot of free clothing clinics around the city of New Orleans where we're based, and we will begin to do some youth empowerment events. I am also a mom of two lovely kids. I have a son and a daughter, and that pretty much, is everything that I
That's
can say about
awesome.
myself.
I'm sure there's a million more things you can say about yourself, but you are very humble and modest in who you are. And I'm so happy to have you join me and us collaborate in the days and weeks to come. And the topic at hand is birth trauma. How to feed your soul after experiencing birth trauma.
A very good topic, because I just feel like we don't have a lot of resources. Like a lot of women have the experience of birth trauma, and a lot of women don't know or realize that they're going through birth trauma. Also, too,
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself as a woman with a lot of different things that I have experienced in my life, I always wonder, like, am I the only woman that's going through this? Like, do we have similar experiences, or if not the same experience, or, relatable, not just relatable, but like alike? And a lot of
Right.
the times, when you're dealing with any type of trauma, it is not something that you're very vocal about, or
Yep.
things that you want more insight on because it's very triggering, or it may be embarrassing for you. We as women, I feel like the modern society of women today is more, I hate to say it, competitive. So it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't let you see this about me, I don't want you to know
Right.
that about me, even though we live in a very, like, open, nothing is subliminal or hidden anymore type of
Yeah.
society and world. For women, we're still in a big competitive
Right.
space. So
Right.
not everyone is very vocal. Some people are not even just compassionate to others, or showing any type of empathy towards
Right.
others experiencing birth trauma.
Right.
I know
And
that was a lot.
no, that was right on point, and it really just sparked so many. There are so many subtopics can just spew from that one, that what you just said, and it's so true that many of us, we don't feel supported because of the society that we live in, where everything is about optics. How good does something look? And many of us, we have a hard time with vulnerability because we live not only in a society that's all about, let me make sure I look good all the time. And in a competitive society, I make sure I look stronger or better than the next one. But it's also a society where we are very judgmental. And so
Yes, the judgmental part.
it's
Yeah.
so easy to scroll down your timeline and you're gonna see something judgmental. Someone passing a judgment about anything. And it's like
Yes.
sometimes when you're going through something like a birth trauma or recovering from a birth trauma, so to speak, you find it hard to feel supported. Sometimes you may
Yes,
feel
you do.
afraid. Yeah, you feel
You do.
helpless and
You
you
are
feel
in a
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
keep
just
going.
was gonna say you're in a very kind of delicate state, like
Mm,
very fragile.
yes.
And you are at a weak place, and it's okay in that moment. I mean, you just gave birth. You just held a child for 10 months, so you've
Yeah.
given so much of yourself into this baby. Yes, your body needs to be recharged. Your mental needs to be recharged. Your spiritual side needs to be recharged. Your
Right.
emotions, everything about you needs to be recharged. So you are like at your lowest,
Yep.
in a way. Some women are way more empowered. I think it just depends on how the pregnancy went, honestly and truthfully. If you had a
Yeah.
really good pregnancy where you had a lot of support, um, you didn't have anything to stress you out or anything to worry about, naturally
Yeah.
most women have what they call like the pregnancy glow,
Right.
and it's just everything just kind of falls in place. There wasn't a lot of trauma.
Right.
I'm sure they have had a moment or something to go on,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, I feel like those women like saying like my pregnancy's been going great. I feel great. They're glowing. They're just thriving in pregnancy. I feel like it comes from a place of a lot of support, whereas some of
Mm-hmm.
us, including myself, did not have a lot of support
Right.
um, during pregnancy. Some of us didn't have a lot of support during labor. Those things do
Mm-hmm.
affect you. It's a part of birth trauma. So you carry that
Yeah.
sometimes, even through, and I feel like it transcends into postpartum depression for some people. Hey, it's different from everyone. So don't quote me. I'm not a statistical or a doctor or anything like that to definitely say, but I do feel like that these are things that contribute to birth trauma.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
some women,
Definitely.
some women who do have the support, I want to go back and say, still do experience post traumatic. I mean, I'm sorry. Oh my
Yep.
goodness,
No, you're right.
postpartum
Yep. And
depression.
postnatal PTSD is what I've done my research in. Is yeah,
Okay.
post traumatic trauma. Everything you're saying is right and exact. But you know, like you said, a lot of people refuse not refuse, but a lot of people go through this stage of either in denial, or they go through these stages of feeling as though they're not supported. Like there are women who are supported, and that's a beautiful thing.
And they
You know,
still don't
yeah.
feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because any woman that has gone through the experience of giving birth, whether you're supported or not, I feel like you go through this phase where you're relearning who you are. Your body has
You.
changed in ways that you never
Yes.
imagined. So I feel
Yes.
like you could be Beyonce, or you could be someone like me, a regular girl, who has went through giving birth, and it takes some time to feel like yourself again, even if it
It
may
really
take a
does.
week. Right, even if it may take a week, or it may take years. Everybody, like you said, experiences different. But I think, just touching on the topic, that there is a Black mortality rate. There is,
Mm-hmm.
and doing my research, I see that Black newborns and Black mothers, they are 2 times as likely to die before their, babies are 2.5 more times likely to die before their first birthdays. And this is Black newborns. Um, especially non-Hispanic Black newborns are 2.5 times as likely to die before their first birthdays. Women, you know, the mortality rate for women in birth is the same. Is the same exact kind of statistics. And every time I'm doing my research, I discover more and more when I go down this rabbit hole of how there is a serious disparity between Black women and other races of people and the experience that we have as a whole. That doesn't mean that every Black woman goes through a traumatic experience, but it's a higher rate of Black women, and it's way too common that Black women experience um, an extreme sense of not feeling fully supported when they walk into the doctor's office, feeling as though they don't know what's on the other side when they give birth to this child. it's just like a million different things. And for me, when I discovered that I was going to become a mother, the most important thing for me was figuring out how I was going to give birth to my baby. And at first, I wanted to do a water birth. And living in New York City at the time, working 2 jobs, it was so hard for me to find the support and the resources that I needed. But I researched and researched and researched until I was able to find a doula. I researched and researched until I was able to find some free classes. And it was hard. It was very difficult. And I felt like many times when I went into the doctor's office, I felt like I had to really be well versed in how to properly advocate for myself when I had concerns. Like, for example, I had a torn amniotic sac when I was like in the beginning, my first trimester towards the beginning of my second trimester. And that was such a scary experience for me, because if that sac didn't heal, I wouldn't have my little precious, super active baby boy today. And I felt like a lot of times when I would come into the doctor's office, for me personally, I know it's not the same for everyone, I felt like a lot of my concerns were not taken as seriously as they should have been. And then when I went to kind of like transfer my doctor to go to another doctor, they made it so hard for me to get my documents sent to another hospital. I would literally have to fight for them to send my medical records to a new doctor. It's hard. And when you don't have a team of support for you, you feel alone, and you feel that starts like the beginning of the prepartum depression and the postpartum depression. And I think one of the biggest aspects of me having birth trauma is when I was in the process of having my baby. I was in labor for 30 hours, and I gave my doctor a birthing plan. And I just was so anxious to get this over, because I never felt, so every time I went to the doctor's office, I was being rushed out. And then secondly, I felt helpless. And then when I'm here on the table, and I know I haven't been given enough resources, the doctor telling me, hey, do X, Y, and Z to make sure you have a successful, safe delivery. When I was on that delivery table, or on that delivery bed, about to push out this baby, I just didn't feel empowered in the experience. And then to feel, you be so tired, and then once you finally had the baby, you be so exhausted, and you finally think back, okay, this wasn't followed on my birth plan. Not only did I experience birth trauma, my baby experienced some birth trauma. And then seeing the story about that beautiful couple, that married couple, that beautiful couple, this Black woman and her husband, baby head was severed off. When I think about stories about that, think about, this is a real thing that happened. And then when you think that these people were trying to get away with this baby head being severed. And this was in Georgia, which is another state that has a high Black mortality rate. It's another state that has a lot of issues in terms of the statistics of Black birthing experiences. And anyone who listens, they can do their research. But it's just like to find out that this this couple in Georgia filed a lawsuit against the doctor, hospital, and nurses. So it wasn't just one person. It was a team of people who were involved in the delivery of her first baby. And they used too much force during the procedure of giving birth to this baby that resulted in decapitation and death of their baby. And I often ask myself...
Devastating.
Devastating. And I ask myself, how can we prevent this? And that's a whole conversation, because there is a lot of racism in major institutions. And it's a lot of covert racism. And then it's a lot of racism that you can't fully pinpoint. But when things like this happen, it's just like, what do we do? And from a personal level, I just wanted to just dive in and do my research on how do I recover from birth trauma? And then taking it a step forward, how do I be one of those people to help in the journey as a whole decrease the statistics of the Black mortality rate for infants and mothers And it's just like, so, this is just a little glimpse into my story. But when I found out that story, which was like, I think that was last month, um in August, that was just devastating. And for me with my baby, um there's a whole lot of things that I can talk about on that topic of my delivery experience did not go the way I intended it. And I had a very detailed birthing plan that I gave them, that they scanned and put into my medical records, and it was not properly followed. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know if it's a lack of connection or disconnect, that they don't see me on that, they don't see themselves when they see some of us brown and black women sitting on that table, on that delivery chair, and that delivery bed. They don't see themselves, so they don't see a greater sense of concern. And then, is it the perception that black women are just so strong, we could take on a certain level of pain that we don't deserve? It's a lot. It's devastating, it's depressing, but it's also depressing on the other end, when you feel like you're not supported. And then, like the terminology that I often use is that, and was discussed in one of my birthing classes that I had during my pregnancy, is that they treat, oftentimes, family, or our circle of what should be support, they treat us like we're candy wrappers, and the baby is the candy. And once the baby is born, they throw us away like a candy wrapper, and no one really checks in with us. Hey, how you feeling? How's your body feeling? And then, it'll be 2 months, 5 months, 6 months, and we're still drowning in our postpartum symptoms, and people don't get it or understand it. And sometimes it's shocking to me that it's women that have had children that cannot understand the dynamics of postpartum. And for me, that was kind of like my experience, where I felt like there was a stage in me becoming a mother where I would isolate myself, because I didn't feel empowered or supported the way I needed to be. So I felt like, okay, I'm not getting the support I needed, so I'm just going to isolate myself and drown in this postpartum depression and drown in these feelings, and feel like nobody gives a crap about my journey into rebirth and finding myself. And even now, 14 months postpartum, I'm still rediscovering who I am. And some people, they may bounce back quickly, but for me, that's not my story. And some people on the outside looking in be like, girl, you look good. You look like you don't look like you're going through anything, but people, you be surprised. And for me, whenever I see a new mother, or whenever I get a chance to have a moment with my friends, because we're all busy, I always look for the right questions to ask them. How are things going for you? Do you feel fully supported in your new journey of X, Y, and Z? Try to find open-ended questions to ask my friends when I get to have that quality time with them. Like right now, me and you on this podcast, and what do you feel are some ways that we as women could support each other better? Because this is not just a postpartum issue. This is an overall issue in society, where as women, we spend so much time looking at each other as competition instead of allies. We spend so much time looking at, how could I judge the next person, and to how could I look beyond judgment and really see what the need is there for that person, or look at them from a place of love. Like the quote says, if you spend time loving someone, you don't have time to judge them. And the spirit of love is kind of like absent sometimes in society, where we don't feel like that is a thing, So what would you say?
I feel like the first thing that we need to do, overall, I feel like for women, because I don't want to make it a race thing. For women, what we need to do is learn how to begin to be more open about experiences, especially if we see someone struggling in an experience, or just putting it out there, just being transparent, because transparency always helps so many people. Transparency, when you're just transparent and just sharing something, you will never imagine it's unimaginable how many people needed to hear what it was that you went through, or what it was that you did to resolve or to help you through what you went through. I think
Right.
if we begin, I feel like that's the aspect for women, like being more transparent, not holding up walls, and just being strong in who you are and knowing who you are, confident in who you are. Because a lot of time women don't share certain experiences because they're worried about being judged, and women are very judgmental. Honestly,
Mhm.
truthfully, women are extremely judgmental. And I think it's because, I hate to say this, I don't want the guys to attack me, but it's because we have so much that we have to keep up.
Mhm.
um you
Mhm.
have to keep up your appearance. Like, for us, society, it's so much in detail as women that we have to do to fit into society's standard of looking like a nice woman, or just what society's definition. And when I say society, a lot of time that is directed towards men, you know,
Right.
mostly, in our bodies, and everything is from the man's visual, the man's perception, the man's ideal of what a woman is supposed to be at this top tier. So they have pushed those impressions upon us, and we don't want to look a certain way. Like I was stating earlier, it's not so much as of a competitiveness, but we don't want to come off weak. We are women, and
Mhm.
we are fragile, we are emotional, we are these different things. We're not made up like men. Our makeup is not of men. So I feel like it's okay for us to be transparent, to help the next woman when it comes to women.
Right.
We need to begin to learn how to be more open, be more free, be more confident in who you are. Yeah, I messed up, or yeah, I was this way during my birthing experience, during my pregnancy, during in my labor, outside of pregnancy and labor. Just overall, women need to be able to be more compassionate, less judgmental, and more transparent to women. Now, as for
Yes.
on a racial aspect of things, for Black women, because I hate to say this, we don't have enough resources. We are not I feel like you said, like they view us like a piece of candy type of deal, not just of being a woman, but like, okay, when you're pregnant, everybody caters to you, everybody is babying you, everybody is just a support to you to a certain degree. But after you have that baby, it's like a reality check thing, and for some that is not
Mhm.
the case. You lose
Mhm.
yourself in that, and
Mhm.
then you begin to you once you've lost yourself, like, after you have your baby, like, the soul dude, I'm about to have a baby. When you're a mom, everyone puts that impression upon you. So, or as a Black woman, you're a mom
Mhm.
and you're about to have a baby. Like, Black women are made extremely strong. All of us are strong. We have this thing going on with the mental health right now, but for the most part, all I feel like all Black women have this thing in them where they have this innate, you just have to be strong, passed down
Mhm.
from your great grandmother, your great great
Mhm.
great 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 grandmother, all the way down to you. Like, girl,
Yep.
you got to get it together. You got to snap out
Mhm.
of it. It's, there's no time to be depressed. There's no time to really evaluate yourself. You have to just step up and be a mom. I experienced this myself.
Right.
So I feel like I had a supportive family, but it was not a lot of resources. I had to do a lot of things on my own. I feel like we need to provide more resources, and we need to have more African American doctors
Mhm.
that really care about our race, to really make sure that things are good. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, for the couple that, lost their child to being decapitated during labor, the doctor was an African American doctor. I really hate to say that. That
Mhm.
really shocked me, because I don't feel like we have a lot of um Black
Right.
doctors, not even
Right.
African American, but just Black doctors.
That's shocking. So it was a Black doctor who the situation that happened in Georgia with the baby's head getting severed.
Yes. I just want to say, I know that we're talking about, like, in this portion of the segment, like, we're talking about what women, what do new moms need? And I spoke on, just women as in a whole, what needs to be done. And now I'm speaking on for Black women or the Black community, period, what needs to be done, because we don't have a lot of resources available to us.
Right.
The resources are there, but they're not as easily obtainable.
Right.
We need to begin to have more Black doctors, nurses, healthcare
Right.
industry people in full, just everyone
Right.
that care more and that are willing
Right.
to provide and put you in the right position to birth your child. You
Right.
know, we as a Black community, we do need to encourage more, doing your research, reading. I hate to say, the little jokes that they say, like, Black people don't like to read. Black people are selective readers, let's put it that way. So,
Right. Right.
but this is what I feel is most important, that we begin to do for the Black community, for new moms or pregnant moms. We need to provide them with all the tips, resources,
Right.
programs that could help them during
Right.
pregnancy and after pregnancy,
Right.
that could help them emotionally, that can help them physically, mentally, financially, because these days in society, it's very expensive to have a baby, just one.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
very expensive to be pregnant, and the resources are available and they're out there. We just need to begin to show one another how to obtain it. Don't
Right.
withhold information.
Yeah.
Give as much
The
information as you
gatekeeping.
can.
Yeah, we gotta stop the gatekeeping, and
Yes,
that's an issue
no more
in our society.
gatekeeping.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna build our community. That's how we're gonna give back. That's how we're gonna help. Like, there are so many new moms that I'm seeing. You hear about them either killing themselves because they're exhausted and overwhelmed with being a single mom. The new day and age single mom is not like the 90s, the 80s, the early 2000s
Right.
mom. These young women are having a hard time with being a mom, and they're just having kids, like, they're having a lot of children, which is nothing wrong with having a lot of children. Children are blessings,
Right.
but when you really think about in the time and day and age and space that we live in, we are going through some wild times in the world. So your mental, like, you really have to have you need to have a strong mental to deal with a lot of the things that we've experienced as a nation, as a people, over,
Right.
well, really, we can go back to slavery days, but I'm just talking about modern times.
Right. And
You have to have a
a lot
strong
of
mental.
right, and a lot of what we're dealing with and experiencing, even though we try to pretend like the past is the past, many oftentimes on so many levels we're living in the shadows of enslavement, the shadows of the beginning of white
Yes,
supremacy.
it's being passed down.
Yeah.
That those mentalities, like, we're talking about mental health. Like I said before, you would get that wake up call from your aunt, you get that wake up call from your mom, your great grandma, your grandma, whoever it is, your cousins. Girl, you got to get it together. It's a reality check. Now, you don't have time to do all that, but in real reality, what we should have been doing is taking the time out for our mental, understanding our bodies, understanding our
And
minds and
yeah,
emotions.
and
They
making
don't
us
really
feel like
teach you
it's
that
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, but
in the
you
Black
don't get taught
community.
that. No, because this thought process that we have to be this phenomenal superwoman all the time, that we
Yes,
have to
and
have emotional restraint, and
yes,
that we have to always just be this strong,
pillar.
yeah, strong pillar in our family, in our community, and we're not given the space to be soft. We're not given the space to be vulnerable and feel like it's a safe space to be vulnerable, because
Right.
that's the environment that I was raised in. And like, there are some girls who are not raised that way, that are a brown or black woman, but in my experience, I've always been taught that you gotta be tough. You're not allowed to look and have a moment where you can just cry, where you can say, I know I got to get up and be a mom, but every woman, especially a new mom or any mom going through postpartum or any mom at that, we need a moment where we can feel a sense of just a safety net where it's okay to say, you know what, today is really freaking hard. And I'm not going to be down on myself because I can't show up today the way I need to, because some days I should be allowed not to show up because life is hard. We live in layers and layers of issues in society that can be another topic that can go into turn into another
Yeah.
topic. But
It's
it's
so much to bounce off with this. Like, it's a
yeah,
lot of topics to bounce off of and
yes,
address with this to cover.
yeah, definitely. And this has been an amazing first episode. Um, come to part two. We're gonna have a part two of this, where we're gonna dive deep into more into this. We're gonna talk about some techniques of soul care. You know, any woman that's listening to this and they're recovering from birth trauma, and are they had birth trauma and they feel like there are some instances where they haven't recovered from it. Sometimes we have unprocessed trauma and it comes out in ways that we don't even expect it to. And I think it's so important, talking to myself as I'm talking to you, is that finding the resources that you need and making it your job to find it. Don't just say, oh, I'm gonna do it after I do this for the kids, or I'm gonna do it after I do X, Y, and Z.
It's so important.
Yes.
It is so important to
Yes.
really take the time out for yourself. I just want to say to anyone that may be experiencing birth trauma right now during their pregnancy, postpartum depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, anything that is giving you a mental havoc or chaos, you're not having peace within yourself,
Right.
it's okay. It's
Right.
okay. And give yourself grace. It's okay to have this moment. You don't have to stay there. And it's just a moment. A lot of people get stuck and they don't realize it's just a moment. You're having a bad moment.
Right.
And it's not permanent. It does not have to be permanent. Some people really do get stuck though, and they can't, maneuver or figure out how to work their way out of this dark place or this bad space. But it's just a moment, and it's okay to experience that moment. You need to experience it, but you don't have to stay there. I just want to say that.
Right. That's beautiful.
You don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
It's okay, and you don't have to stay there. It's
Absolutely.
perfectly fine. Your body, like your mind, your mental, your body, everything has to recharge. You've given so much to this new being of life. You've given a portion of yourself, a huge portion of yourself. So yes, it is natural to be at this place or this space right now.
Right.
And things will come together. Things will come together. You will begin to feel better. You will find yourself again. It's going to be a new you anyway. You're a whole new person now that you've given life to a baby. Or you're carrying a baby. So these are some things that I just wanted to say. I just hope that that you'll allow yourself grace and just know that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it gets better. PPD, as they call it, that postpartum depression, it's more common than we think. And many of us, you got to look for the signs of it. Are you feeling numb, not dumb? Are you feeling numb or disconnected from people around you? Are you consistently having these worries and fears that could sometimes come across irrational in your mind? Are you feeling guilty about not being enough, not doing enough? These are some of the signs. Even feelings of anger, which is really prevalent that I feel in our community, is that oftentimes many of us are very angry. And we don't realize that being angry or snappy or being temperamental, that's signs of depression. That's signs of unprocessed trauma. And you have to know your triggers. And sometimes the triggers aren't just things that are obvious. Sometimes it could be your hormone levels. Maybe you need to look into a better supplement, or look and see if there are herbs out there that may work for you. There are even three types of, postpartum, or just different types of depression. Sometimes, they say postpartum can last on average up to 3 years, and this is not just something to think about as a mother that's postpartum. Any woman that's going through a transition, through a new phase, you know, yes, it's good to hustle and grind towards a goal, but also give yourself grace in every stage of your life. To always give yourself grace, and that's something that I'm learning. You know,
Yes.
it's
And it's so
hard.
important.
Yeah.
Treat yourself. You as like one of my favorite quotes. I'm so sorry I said quotes. One of my favorite quotes is like, "You're a home to a life."
Wow.
I have to find it. That is what stuck out the most for me. You
Right.
need to be gentle with yourself. We
Right.
only get one life. We only have
Right.
one life source. You
Right.
know, it is up to us to understand and be gentle and to love ourselves and to just give ourselves grace and mercy. We're
Yeah.
here. If you're here and you're alive and you're here and you're alive, I won't say well, but if you're here alive and well and you're
Yeah.
being, meaning you are a human being, you're living, you deserve to treat yourself as that. Life is
Yeah.
so beautiful. Outside of being, if you're pregnant or a mom or not, you need to understand, the root of that. Give yourself grace always,
Right.
no matter what it is that you've been through, no matter what it is that you've done. Give yourself grace.
Right.
So,
And as I saw one quote too that sparked my brain on that. When you live with grace and gratitude, happiness enters your life. You know,
that's right.
and of all the things that is hard to teach and to reach is patience and grace. It's hard to reach, but it's worth striving for, you know. And we are taught so many things. We're taught to make sure, you dress right, you look right, make sure your shoes match your belt, match your pants. We're taught, clean up your room. These things are important, but we are often not taught how to be kind to ourselves and how to be kind to others. And that glorious grace that we give ourselves, it lightens the load of life, you know, and, being patient with ourselves and have grace in everything that we do. That's something that I'm learning, but it's a grace is not only a gift that you give to yourself, it's a grace that you can give to the world. And oftentimes I ask myself, what areas of my life where I can be giving more grace, and how could I be more gracious in all that I'm doing? So that can lighten my heart, and even with my journey of feeling resentment towards people that I feel like didn't show up for me in the way that I needed them to. How do I have a heart of a warrior? And that is something that we can dive into. We got so many topics that we can dive into in the future. This has been such a great time diving in this topic with you. And thank you to the listeners. This is not your typical podcast. It's one of the realest podcasts that you can tune into and listen to, because we're talking from the heart. We're talking from personal experiences, and we want you to walk away from the conversation feeling empowered and feeling like there is someone that can relate to you in your experience.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Zjaleah Herrera. Again, her new podcast is Episodes of Empowerment. New episodes coming out soon. And she's not leaving us. She's going to be joining us in many episodes to come. You have brought, yes, thank God. And you have brought such a beautiful energy to today's conversation. And all listeners, keep tuning in to Soul Care Conversations.
See you guys next time.
See you guys next time.